Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about lease violations and really just getting back to the basics on how to deal with tenant issues when they pop up. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason and I help landlords learn how to manage property. I do this through creating content, through coaching, through of course answering questions and talking to landlords on this group as well. So speaking of this group, before we get into the content, I just wanted to take a quick moment and thank everybody. We reached our 10,000 member mark here a couple days ago, and that was really exciting. That's a lot of people. Didn't really ever expect to see that many folks in this group, and I think we've bumped up about probably another 250, 300 more since then in the last couple of days as well. So it's growing pretty quickly. And you know, one of the things that I personally find about this group or just intrigued me is really what an amazing group of people that we really have in here. I mean, there are thousands of people that are always contributing their experience, their time, their knowledge. We have a lot of new landlords here. We have a lot of experienced landlords here, a lot of very smart landlords here who've been through a lot. And for the folks that are new and for the folks that are wanting to become a landlord, I think this is an excellent resource, especially when it comes to specific Q&A. I belong to some other groups, and maybe I'm a little biased, but I really do think that the quality of information that we put out there, that you guys put out there, is, you know, bar none. You know, one of the reasons I think that our group kind of sets apart too is that, you know, we screen every post. We're pretty big on not letting people tear each other down, especially, you know, we can't catch everything, but I think we do a pretty good job about seeing that, and the members do a really good job about reporting that stuff for us as well. And really, I think this group overall is helpful. They really are about bringing other landlords up and passing that along. So, I mean, I just think all of those things combined is really what's kind of contributed to this. And of course, I want to thank my wife too, because she does a bulk of this admin on the back end, screening these posts as they come in, helping people with the questions, looking at the reporting and making sure that, you know, because there's a lot of posts that get reported that, you know, we check out as well and we do nothing about because they seem legitimate to at least us. But, you know, my wife does a lot of that. So, you know, shout out to her too. She's never on here. Speaking of which, oh, you know, the other thing too, before I move on to the content here, I wanted to talk about, I think the one last thing that I think this group is amazing for is the sheer number of people from different places. And so, like, I've managed, I don't know how many states, you know, maybe 9, 10, 11 states at this point, a lot of different cities. But the thing is I can't be everywhere. I don't know a lot about California, New York, and some of these places I've never managed and actually are a little more different. I can point you in the right direction. I can do research. I can find this stuff. But when you guys ask questions about those places and specific situations you're working through, I don't have that on the ground experience. And so what I love about this is that there's people from all over the place that come in and, you know, give direction, give guidance, and give their experience in stuff that they've actually dealt with in those locations. So I think that is another reason why I find this place so amazing and so helpful to everybody. Speaking of which, let me know where you're watching from, whether you're watching this live or the kind of replay on it. Let me know in the comments below. City, state, give a shout out. Okay, so let's talk about lease violations here real quick. So again, a lot of scenarios really kind of come back to just getting back to the basics. I mean, there's a lot of different situations with lease violations, tenants that do things to our property and act certain ways and so on and so forth. But you know, and sometimes what that does is it puts us in a weird place because it's very easy to get, I don't want to say emotional about it, but we're invested in it. It's our property. We put time in this and money and energy and you know, blood, sweat, and tears, and some of this stuff is just blatant. And the thing is that at the end of the day, we have the same recourse ultimately. And again, what we're going to talk about today is really just an overview because there will be some maybe state specific stuff, but this will give you a good idea of kind of what the process looks like and kind of the approach that we need to take. But so when someone violates that lease agreement, in my opinion, the first thing we need to do, and every time there's a lease violation, I think it needs to be in writing. Whether you use a form or, I recommend a form, of course, but as long as it's in writing saying, okay, hey, this has happened, you violated this part of the lease, there's going to be some issues. And this can be for anything. I mean, we're talking about unauthorized occupants, whether it's animals, whether it's parking in the grass, smoking when they're not supposed to be, damage to the property, whatever it is. It's the same process at the end of the day. Now, the reason I say that I like having them in writing, and I think other people should have them in writing, and of course, if something works better for you below, please let us know. I'd love to hear different perspectives on this. But the reason I like it in writing is because if we ever have to evict on these types of things, these are more challenging evictions here. And rents, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's a little more clear cut. I mean, at least in the places I've managed, you go in with a 3-day, 5-day notice to quit or pay, and they don't pay. For the most part, it's pretty easy to get them out. Sometimes they can drag it out a little bit, but these others, there's a little more burden of proof. You can get more into that he said, she said type scenario. So having this stuff in writing is extremely helpful. I would also say that when you prepare your lease violation notice, that you try to tie the violation to a specific clause in the lease agreement. Again, it makes it cleaner. You can be general and you can be vague, but if it gets challenged, it's just going to be that much more difficult. It's one thing to say, well, they are noisy. It's another thing to say that you violated this provision of the lease, no noise after 10 p.m. or whatever the situation may be. If you can link it to something like that, that always seems to be more helpful too. It seems like you're more professional and that you have your stuff in line. And then another thing I like to do, if possible, is give remedies for situations, list out what those remedies are. So, for example, like an unauthorized occupant. So with any lease violation, as far as I know, every state has some sort of like waiting period, a cure period. So whether it's you have to wait 14 days for them to, or give them 14 days to cure, to correct it 10 days, whatever it is. I'll use a 1430 is what I'm, primarily used to. So I'll use that just for our examples here. But like an unauthorized occupant, you can go in and you can say, yeah, you have 14 days, this person has to leave, or this is your 30-day notice to vacate. Another thing is if you, for whatever reasons, feel like it may not be a bad idea to let that person stay, fine. Use the same lease violation notice and say, hey, you have 14 days to, fill out the application, pay the application fee, meet my screening criteria and get approved. And if you don't get that process done within that 14 days, then I'm sorry, this is going to be a 30-day notice to leave. Everybody has to vacate. So that's one way you can approach it. You can do the same thing with animals. I do something similar with damages. I'll go in and usually I find these during quarterly inspections too, by the way. If there's damages, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I'm going to send somebody in to fix this, and when it's fixed, I am going to charge your account. And if they give me any issues like not letting me in, or if they don't pay, things along those lines, and it then becomes the lease violation that I can move forward on. Things like parking in the grass, decorations, pools, some of those things, it's really just kind of give your notice, go back in your 14 days, make sure that violation was cured, and if it's not, then issue whatever that next remedy is, whether you're going to do eviction, whether you didn't have to issue notice to vacate, whatever that may be. Now, like I said, there are different cure periods. Like I said, I'm used to a 14-day and a 10-day. I think I've seen a 30-day and like a 22-day. Shoot me in the comments below what yours is. I know they have them. There's all kinds of periods. And another thing that I've seen too is that, like with the 1430, when I use that one, and this is a Kansas one, it's 14 days to cure the violation, or it's 30 days to move out if they don't cure the violation. I have seen some places where it is you give that notice to cure, and if they don't do it, then you have to issue a 30-day notice if it's not fixed from that point forward. And again, that varies state by state. So please make sure to know what your local ordinances are in your state and stuff like that. Because that will be helpful. You don't want to do the wrong thing and go to court and then have to start all over again. And then, of course, if they don't leave after that 30-day notice or the cure period or whatever their time is to leave, then unfortunately, then yes, you have to start with the eviction process, and go through that rigmarole. So I didn't say this is quick and easy and simple, but it is pretty basic. I mean, it is overall the same type of approach for most of the violations. Rent violations are a little different, but these 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 tend to be just a little more complicated because again, that proof, and that comes to my next point, is that when you do this, I highly recommend having some sort of documentation in place. Now, this can be pictures, this can be emails, it can be text messages. I like the old CYA log, the very professional industry term, which is basically just a piece of paper, a notebook, date, with dates and times and the situation. Because the thing is, if you go into court and it becomes again, a he said, she said type scenario, a lot of times, especially in certain states, they're going to side with the tenant. If it becomes an argument match, you're going to lose. But if you go in there and you have that history of lease violations, if you have that notice in place and you have the documentation, you go in there with your stuff together, cool, calm, and collected, there's a good chance that you can count on a win on that and getting them out. So again, just a recommendation, make sure to have your documentation in place there. Okay, so application real situation to a real situation. Saw a post this week in the group, made me laugh. It was the post, was anonymous post, is about the person that had the tenant who installed the pole made for dancing in the living room, and it made me laugh because I've dealt with this about a half a dozen times myself or more, and it just made me chuckle because when I dealt with it, I was like, who does this? It's just weird, to me at least. And so I chuckled because I kind of felt like, well, at least I'm not the only one that has to deal with something like this. But on this particular situation, it's pretty simple. You go in, you issue the notice, and you let them know that this needs to be removed. And then within this period of time, and after it's removed, you're going to send somebody in there to repair the damages to the ceiling and the floor or whatever else was caused by installing this pole. You're going to reinspect when it's done, and if it's out of there, then you're going to go on and schedule the repairs, and then you're going to charge the tenant. If they don't comply with getting it out, okay, fine. You can have your guy get it out if you want to do that as well. I mean, that may be a better approach, just in that uninstalling it the right way may cause less damage than whatever they decide to do to get it out of there. But if they don't do that, or if they don't pay the bill for that, then you move on with your notice to vacate, and then on ultimately to your eviction. Now, one of the things I do, and I think I mentioned this in one of my posts, and you're going to have to this is kind of gray area stuff. Some places it'll fly, some places it won't. So just kind of know your area and what works and what doesn't. But one of the things that I have a provision in my lease that basically says oldest charges get paid first, because what I ran into when we had our property management company back in Kansas is we had a lot of people that would come in and try to say, well, it needs to be applied to rent. We're not paying this damage, we're not paying this late fee, we're paying this rent. And the provision in the lease for us was we are going to apply the money to the oldest charge first. That is our policy. We do it to everybody consistently, and that's the way we ran it. Now, I will say there was a time or two when it came to getting a judgment that they didn't really like that. But other than that, out of hundreds of evictions and charging people, it was never an issue. I think we just kind of ran into a judge who just didn't like that we did that. In some places, it just may be flat illegal. But what that does is it allows you to collect those late fees and collect those damages and apply those to the oldest charge first, so that if, let's just say it's $500 in damages, $1,000 in rent, they pay their $1,000 in rent, you apply the $500 of the damages and then $500 of the rent, they still owe $500 in rent, which means you can now move forward with a notice to pay or quit, as opposed to a lease violation type procedure like we just discussed. But again, please consult with somebody that knows more about your particular legal structure than I do, because again, I don't know where you're at. I don't know what your court system's like or any of that. So just that's my disclaimer on that. Okay, so that's what I have for just kind of the overview of tenant or of lease violations there. I hope that was helpful. I'll check here to see if we have any questions before we go. But before we go, I do want to point out a couple things within the group for those of you that are either new or just don't know, is just some extra resources, because I know that a lot of times when there's a lot of similar questions in one way or another. So, and that's perfectly fine. We love those questions. They're easy to answer, and we have a lot of resources for them. But I do want to point out that we do have some sections here that if you're not aware of, they may help you out. We have, if you scroll up to the top of the Facebook page, you see the tabs. I think it's discussion and events and something. There's about 5 or 6 tabs there, but one of those is called files. And if you click into the files section, what you're going to find is basically a list of all the documents that have been uploaded to the group. And I know I've put quite a few like screening and lease application type files in there that you can download, you can customize, you can use. And then I know that when other members of the group upload files as well, that they get posted there as well. We just had one this week that I thought was great by Bernard. I don't remember the last name, but it was a cash for keys agreement, and I took a look at it, and it looked pretty solid to me. And of course, you're going to want to whenever you use a templated form from anywhere, whether it's us or any other place on the internet, make sure that, if possible, have a set of legal eyes on it. Make sure it's good for your area. But I thought it was a pretty solid cash for keys agreement. So that was a great addition. So make sure to look out there. The other thing I want to point you to is our blog. I'll leave you a link in wherever the links are at, when these videos post. But we release articles weekly there. And this is also where we post a lot of those resource articles too. So and I've used these over and over, like a list of landlord softwares, background screening companies, those links to landlord-tenant laws. It's a great little article. It has 4, 5, 6 different places you can go, and you can then drill down into your state and get all kinds of information about state-specific stuff, sometimes city-specific stuff. And again, I think there's 5 or 6 different places you can go on that particular article, and they all have similar stuff, but they all have different stuff too. So if you're really looking to do some research and you have questions you need answered, I think it's a great place to start. But those are all on there. We do release videos on there as well, but those are kind of locked down to the general public. The blog is free though. I mean, if you want access to those videos, it's real simple. You just sign up for the blog, and then you get access. It's free. We don't charge anything for there. So I wanted to point out those resources for you because they are extremely helpful in my opinion, at least in terms of if you're looking to do some research. And of course, I'll continue to post them on the group, and I'm sure many of you have already seen them. So let's see here. Just want to check real quick. Let's see, Candace and Sharice and Gary. Hello, Gary. Hey, thanks for the information, guys. Thanks for the shout out. No real questions, which I didn't expect with the newer Facebook here. Let's see here. Best way to collect unpaid rent from an evicted tenant. Okay, so if you were to post this question, and a lot of people have posted this question in the group, I think there's a lot of opinions. So I'll give you my opinion and the way that I see it, and then I'll kind of touch on some of the other stuff I've seen as well. So for me, collecting unpaid rent from an evicted tenant, it's damn near impossible. I mean, the time and effort and energy it takes to kind of go through the judgment process and locate where their accounts are and where they're working. I mean, and usually these folks are, I don't want to say transient, but the minute you find where they work, if you actually do get a garnishment, they're gone. It's so much time wasted. What I have personally done that's been the most effective, and we use this with the property management company, so there was a lot of volume. My management company, it's still around. We just relocated, and I sold off my shares, but we managed about 1,600 doors. So we got to, and I did it for 15 years. And so we got to see some volume. And what worked the best for us is getting it over to a collection agent as soon as possible, because the sooner they get it, the more likely they are to be able to find and capture information that they can continue to follow up for years down the line. Another thing too is that, if I remember correctly, most credit reporting agencies, they don't put like judgments on their credit reports anymore. And so collection agencies have the ability to get this dinged on their credit, which is the number one way that we actually got paid. So what would happen is we'd get over to our collection agents and we would just write it off. We'd forget about it. We'd let them do what they do. And then at some point in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long down the line it was, we would get a call and we'd say, hey, this person needs to clean up their credit. They're buying a house and they would like to settle for this much. Would you take it? And that's where a majority of our money came from. Or they would start paying their payments. The collection agency would do that. Now, does the collection agency take a large amount, 30, 40, 50, 60%? Yeah, they do. But it's better than zero. And if you really, if that cost benefit of your time and energy going after that, for me, it was just never ever worth it. Now, there will be some people that say walk away, you'll never get it. I don't think that's 100% true. It's just extremely tough. There will be people that'll continue down, and they have the time and energy and the fire and brimstone, the passion to go after that garnishment and keep chasing them down, and maybe they can collect more. And again, those are all very valid and legitimate. But for me, I have better things to do with my time and other ways to make money, and chasing somebody down like that just doesn't work. Let's see here. How do you get a collection agent? Really, you can look them up. There's a lot of landlord-specific collection agencies, and there's a lot of attorneys that do collections as well for landlords. So one, you can just do internet search. That may be a good resource. Let me just write that down. Collection. Maybe I'll do some research and post an article on it to just give some links. I know there's some national ones, but if you have an eviction attorney or a real estate attorney around, a lot of times they'll know and can refer you. You can do a Google search, and I'm sure you're going to find plenty there. But just use the keywords: landlord, collection attorney, collect bad debt, collect past due, eviction rent, things along those lines. And my guess is that you'll get some national ones for sure, and maybe even some local ones in your area, depending on how large your city is. I'm in the greater Phoenix area, so I'm sure there's a whole ton of them here. I know a couple off the top of my head, but like Hole and Holiday is a good. I don't know if that's their full list. Whole, Holiday, and Holiday. I probably butchered that. Sorry, friends, but I know that's where I would check first to see if they do collections, but if not, I know they would know where to direct me on that. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I think that probably wraps up the questions. Anybody else have anything else I can help them with tonight? Okay, so for those of you watching live, thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. I'm going to do this for sure the plan is Tuesdays at 7, and I'm going to try to jump on Thursdays as well, but I want to make Tuesdays a regular night. If you have topics you would like me to cover more in depth, or things that you want to know about, shoot me a comment below. Let me know what those are. I'm always looking for good ideas. I have a list of things that I want to try to cover here over the next couple months. But if you have something that's important to you, I would love to jump in and do that for you as well. So that's what I have. Thank you for watching. Everyone says pretend to be the owner's assistant. Thank you for that. There you go. Pretend to be the owner's assistant. Yeah. Thank you for watching. And thanks once again for being a member. Really appreciate it. 10,000 strong and growing. It's an amazing group. So this is it. This is Jason, and we will see you next week.